108 Idea Exchange, where association and nonprofit leaders, share about their performance, share about their ideas, share their leadership playbooks, and we actually learn from each other a lot. This podcast is brought to you by 108 Idea Space, and I'm Manny. I'm the host and growth strategist here. And today's episode is for CEOs, operation leaders, membership leaders who are carrying a lot on their shoulders and sometimes even some kind of tension right now, where members are expecting more, staff is already stretched, and your systems are changing, and they're managing all of that while creating belongingness in their community. We did our homework, and one thing that kept coming up as a pattern is a lot of organizations think they have technology problems
Mhm.
when what they may really have is clarity, capacity, or operating model problem. And for this discussion, there's no better guest. We have Wendy-Jo Toyama, CEO of the American Epilepsy Society. She's done so much work, and I've tried to encapsulate that, Wendy. But she's the current chair of ASA Research Foundation Research Community and served as a past chair of ASA Diversity and Inclusion Community. She also serves as the chair of the ASA Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Association Community Group. And if you think you recognize her from somewhere, well, she's a fellow of ASAE and recipient of 2025 Key Award and Association Forum's 2024 Women of Influence Award, and is a certified association executive. Wendy has led across major association roles, brings in a deep membership and CEO lens, and is someone who thinks seriously about belonging, justice, leadership, and change. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us.
Wow, that was quite an intro. Thank you.
Well, you've earned it. You've done the
Uh,
work, and we're glad to have you.
I'm excited for our conversation and looking forward to it, Manny. Thank you.
Awesome. So, Wendy, while I was doing some research and, we had a conversation with you, and, even at this point, I don't want to assume my questions are correct. Things are getting in the in the right pattern. So if there's anything that you feel off base, just call me out. And the whole idea is to course correct, because a lot of times associations and our peers think in a certain way, but we may not be looking at the right problem in the right manner, right? So I think where we'd like to start is understanding from a high level, like what challenges do you see leaders and operators wrestling with in their minds when it comes to change right now in this environment?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can represent all leaders, but I'll speak to what I think I'm hearing and what I'm talking about, things that are heavy on my mind. So one of the things we're thinking about is psychological safety. I think
Mm,
with the external environment, people are experiencing a lot of stress, and while they may try to leave it at the door when they come into the office, we want where they spend 37 and a half to 40 hours a week or more to be a place that's safe,
yeah,
that they can really light up with passion about the work they're doing, feel connected to the mission. And so I think a lot about how do we create trust and psychological safety? That's something we're working on. It's so important because we have a lot of new team members, but also I think you know, change is happening more rapidly. That creates
yeah,
uncertainty. Um, and to go along with that, I would say thinking about how to align culture.
yeah.
So, culture exists. It might be good or bad. Takes a long time to change, but you want to make sure it's aligning with the goals of the organization, the mission, and frankly, the culture you're trying to create.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
guess what it sounds like is, a lot, and I see this as well, a lot of associations are solving for urgency
Yes.
when
Yes.
what needs
Oh,
to be at the forefront is clarity and discipline, and at the same time safety and security of where
yeah.
you're working,
Yeah.
because eventually happy souls serve sort of way better than, just being a robotic at your tasks and getting things done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
I feel this conversation is important right now because so many leaders are trying to modernize. They're trying to
Oh,
support
yeah.
their teams.
Trying to
They're
figure out
trying
AI. Yeah.
exactly and still
Yeah.
preserve the human core of what makes
Hmm.
associations work, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, association started with the concept of getting humans together, right?
Right.
So I really appreciate that vision. Now, what do you feel comes in the way when people want to focus on this challenge and want to create that psychological safety for the staff while they're modernizing, increasing belongingness?
Mhm.
I mean, what comes in the way, or
Yeah.
what kind of distracts people?
Yeah. I mean, I think you named one thing already. We want to go fast. I mean, things
Mm,
are moving fast and we feel like we need to match that pace. I always talk about, slowing down to go fast. I've been talking a lot lately about pausing and
mm,
giving permission to people to pause and bring curiosity. And sometimes that may feel like we're slowing down.
mm,
And I think that there's value in doing that instead of just running head on. The other thing I'll say is associations are notoriously good at hiring people who are executors. Like
yeah,
we hire people to get things done and they do that really well. And so trying to create a culture where that executor feels comfortable stepping back, I'm not executing, I may not meet my deadline, and letting them know that that's okay. We're not going to only be deadline driven, right? Like sometimes these deadlines are false deadlines and there are higher purposes that we need to be thinking about. But yeah, I think by nature we kind of hire people that
yeah,
make it hard to pause, like because
yeah.
that's what we want. We want people who can get things done.
And if you had said that 2 days ago, I wouldn't have resonated with that as much as I do right now because
Oh,
our building had a power outage.
oh gosh.
And our condominium was the only one that had a power outage, and
Oh,
no Wi-Fi, no
gosh.
laptops, no devices for a bunch of hours, no light, no food, nothing. But that initial 15 minutes were disruptive. But eventually I said, you got to be in the present
Yeah.
and let's enjoy this. Like, how
Hmm.
many times a year do we get a chance to actually sit back and
Right.
just be, right? So
Right.
I think there's real value in pausing. But I wonder, Wendy, why does urgency feel so real? When we know that it can come as a distraction from the deeper issue. Why does that happen?
Well, I think there's so we in associations, there are many things that we say, oh, it's a crisis. And I like to remind
Mhm.
people, not really a crisis. And so I think distinguishing between what is urgent, meaning it
Mm,
has to get done, and what is a priority, like they may not be the same thing. And that I think that takes some experience. It takes some uh you have to pause, you have to question to distinguish those things. But I think it's the fact that things that feel urgent may not be
mm.
the first thing you're supposed to be doing. And that's kind of sometimes it takes a while, I think, to get to a point where you can sort that through.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's uh, that's true. Now, for some of the aspiring leaders or leaders
Yeah.
who are just,
Yeah.
started to lead their organizations, um, can you give an example or maybe a small
Oh,
next right step to regain that control, to differentiate between urgency and importance, or maybe an example of where you kind of you were presented with the situation and
yeah.
you
Yeah.
kind of took your control over.
I think this is a good story. It's not a high impact story, but nonetheless, I was a new CEO. I
Uh-huh.
was at my first annual meeting. And so remember, I had not been at this annual meeting before. I was at my first annual meeting, and I decided we needed to reset the stage. I didn't want a table that was blocking off the speakers. I wanted it to feel more inclusive, and people welcome in. So we reset the stage so that it was more of a talk show format.
Mm.
Okay. Um, but I didn't ask anyone about it. I just did it. I was the CEO, so I did it. So what happened is we got through the morning, and the president, who I continue to stay in touch with, we have a wonderful relationship, comes up to me and says, "What's with the stage? We need the table. We'd like to take notes." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I had to quickly reset the stage. And the reason I give this example is because it sounds like it wasn't something important. It sounded like something I could just make a decision, but I didn't bother to go and get information. And
Mhm.
so I think, especially when you're a new CEO, there's a lot of value in just taking a beat and
Yeah,
bringing curiosity, getting some information. I usually start my CEO roles with listening conversations. I try to talk to all the staff, all the board within the first 90 days. Um, and that should be something that you bring to the day-to-day work as well. If you're a new CEO, new at the organization,
yeah,
curiosity is a really good quality to have. So I
yeah,
like that story because it just reminds me that, I was moving too fast. I was trying to make an impact, show how creative I was, moving too fast, and, it was a bad decision. Again, everything's recoverable, but
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
And
don't
I
know.
guess,
Hopefully that helps.
yeah, and I guess one takeaway that I'm taking from this is obviously, what you're saying is stay informed before taking decision, be
Mhm.
curious,
Yes,
um, ask around if you don't
yes,
know, right?
yes.
Um, when I was young, my dad said it's better to sound stupid than be stupid.
Oh, I
You
like
know,
your dad.
yeah, which means that, ask a stupid question. Don't worry that you'll be perceived as a weird person, and you'd rather ask and know than not ask and
Right,
stay stupid, right?
right,
So,
right, right.
so, so yeah, I guess that's there. And now you talked about listening as well, which is
Mhm,
key for
mhm.
any leader.
Yeah.
Now, I followed you on LinkedIn, and we have had a conversation earlier as well. And you spend some time with your members, listening to them. When you think about AES over the next couple of years, what are you actually trying to make true for your members and your teams as you have, spent some time listening to their needs?
Yeah, I think our members do extraordinary things to help people with living with epilepsy. And so I think often what we're doing when we're listening is trying to figure out, how do we best meet their needs? How do we add value? How do we remain the place they want to come, the safe space, the credible resource? And thinking about, how does that evolve over time? It might look different.
Mm,
And yet we want to retain the rich history and the things that make us who we are. So how do we balance mindful change while
yeah,
honoring the history and building on the success? So yeah, but it always has the member at the center. I will also say that in all my associations, I've really sought out places where the mission is present, where the patient is present, where the team here can also feel passionate about the mission. So we hire for people that are as passionate about the mission as our researchers and clinicians and APPs and you know, our members. So we are all working to help the 1 in 26 people that will be affected by epilepsy in their lifetime. So I think it's about mission and keeping that front and center, and how do we add value to our members. I'm not sure I answered your question, but
I think you did like that kind of leads off to like it sounds like what you're trying to make true is you're creating this orchestra and you want the instruments, the people playing it and the music to belong. So your members, your staff, they're all aligned with that mission. If you talk about tactical improvements or some
yeah.
improvements that you're trying to make for your members or your community,
Mhm.
uh, could you give examples of that?
Sure. We it was interesting in the interview, the board had expressed a desire to see the technology improve. And I think when the board sees that you need tech improvements, it's kind of a red flag. So
Okay.
I came in and through listening conversations with staff, this was confirmed that we had a bit of a technology deficit to
Mm.
correct. And so because the board had opened the door, I made sure I repeatedly said we're going to need to invest from reserves to improve the tech over a 3-year period. Like they heard me say this, they bought in. So we brought in a firm to do an assessment. We've now created a roadmap. I'm really excited because we created an IT steering committee. So they're going to, start putting some governance in place around IT decisions so that now all that's not going to reside in our one director of tech solutions.
Uh-huh.
So very excited about getting some input and buy-in across the org, not just relying on one person to figure everything out. Um,
Yeah,
he's a leader of that group, and won't have to be doing it all alone anymore, right?
that's
So
right.
so yeah, so for us, we are working to bring our technology up to speed. For me, we want to be an employer of choice, and I think that particularly with the generation entering the workforce now, we can't have that be less than what it should be.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be an coming in the door expectation, and I think associations typically lag on tech adoption, so we certainly are. And I think that has to change if we're going to compete for
yeah.
talent. So, yeah.
That's right. And that's a very fresh way of looking at it. I see most of the time me explaining that to associations, but coming from you, I see that forward-looking visionary approach. And I also see that, a lot of times when board says that we need to invest in technology, the first instinct is urgency. Okay, let's get this done. But I see that you're actually practicing what you said, taking a pause, looking at it holistically, building a roadmap, getting a steering committee, and alleviating some
Right.
pressure from that one person.
Yeah.
Because I feel that ownership of the technology, the data processes is a team sport. It's
Yes.
not the IT person who needs to manage that.
Yeah.
And, I think a trickle down effect of that is member engagement is also not a department. Member engagement is not membership
Right.
team's
Right.
responsibility. It's a collective team
Yes.
sport where finance, volunteer management, everyone has to work together to make member engagement true. Now, you talked about, being the employer of choice. You talked about, ownership across the organization so that they feel comfortable and adopt. You also talked about new talent owning and staying there, feeling excited with the set of technology and tools that they have.
Mhm.
Now, how do you know that all of that vision is actually happening? Like,
Mhm.
what do you watch for formally or informally? What are the signals that tell you that it's working?
Yeah, I mean, so of course there are formal ways to do this. So we did
Mm,
do an employee engagement survey about 6 months in. We're probably going to do that again a year from now, so 2 years apart,
mm,
in order to give us time to address some of those things. Probably this year, we're going to do a comp study based on what we heard from the employee engagement survey, a 360 review for me, and a benefits survey, I think. So, again, listening to staff, but there are ways you can measure this through engagement surveys. So that's one way. Um, I think another way is it's easy for all of us, particularly in a hybrid environment. So we have a hybrid environment. We have people in different states. We went to a flexible work environment prior to the pandemic, so people choose to come in.
yeah.
Some come in 1 to 3 days a week, some don't come in at all. Um, in that kind of environment, I think it's really easy for people, again, our executors, to put their head down and just do work. So I think another way to get a temperature on how culture is evolving is to try to create ways to connect with one another.
Hmm.
So we've evolved our staff meeting, bringing a little more thought to how to get all folks to engage, not just the loud ones in the room.
Yeah.
We've done a few in-person staff retreats. Um, I have in the past held informal water cooler or coffee talks. I probably need to get those scheduled again. Because it's very easy to just get into our silos and do our work.
Yeah.
And trying to bring intention to how to create that cross-team collaboration, um, it's in the hybrid environment is really tough. And I think we
Yeah.
haven't, when I say we, I don't mean AES, I mean society hasn't quite figured that out yet. But we're
Yeah.
not going back. So, we're going to need to figure it out. And I've heard people say that you can't create culture in a hybrid environment. And I'm sorry, culture is everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
there is culture. It may not be the culture you want or you're used to or you like, but you have to create that. So I think being visible and connecting with the team. I did listening conversations with the team and was thinking I may do that again. Skip
Yeah.
level conversations. I think if you're a larger organization or even small, it's important to let your leadership team know you're going to do skip level conversations. And is that okay? I learned a lot when I talk to
Yeah.
some of the staff that I don't interact with as often. And I want everyone to feel like they can come to me. And I think in a hybrid environment, that's even harder
That's
to
right.
kind of build that sense of accessibility. I leave my door open when I'm here, but people aren't here, so it doesn't really
That's
matter.
right.
But yeah, yeah. So
I
those are a
guess,
few of the things.
yeah. And it does get hard when you're working remotely, your calendar is typically packed minute to minute.
Yeah.
So there's only so much room in your calendar where you can have those conversations. I think you did point out that making sure it's not just the loud ones that you're listening to, but
Yeah.
also the other ones. Like how do you create that environment? And that's a constant challenge because a lot of times people have great ideas. It's just that they feel they don't have the right platform. And I feel that the way you're trying to evolve this culture will really allow AES to grow faster because sometimes it's the quieter ones who have the greatest ideas because they have been thinking a lot. Not saying that the loud ones don't, but it's just that when every idea comes on the table, things evolve really fast. And it sounds to me, Wendy, that all in all, if I think back about how you look at membership, how you look at staff, it's all about belongingness for you,
Mhm.
and
It
making people
is.
feel that belongingness. So talking about members, I know a lot of organizations, they create belongingness at a moment. For example, the conference,
Mhm.
amazing conference, a lot of belongingness, a lot of interaction, and then it kind of fizzles out.
Mhm.
So how do you take care of belongingness year round
Yeah.
for your members?
Yeah. I think that that is something that we, along with other associations, are trying to figure out.
Mm.
We do have a online learning, tool. And so that is one traditional way that associations are doing that. Um, you know, I think for me as a CEO, which is a little different than the questions you asked, but I'm trying to show up,
Yeah.
so this week I'll be going to a society meeting for neurologists that happens to be in town. Next week I'm going to go to where my past president is. He's holding an epilepsy retreat, so I'm going to
Mhm.
attend that. Um, 2 weeks ago, I was visiting one of our board members because we have a CDC cooperative agreement, and there was a site visit. So I think for CEOs to remember that you're the external face for the organization. That I had a board member tell me it's a really big deal when the CEO shows up. I'm like, oh, okay, it's just me, but sure. Um, so I feel like Wendy comes and Wendy's just Wendy, but I have to remember when Wendy comes, I bring my position with me, and that to have the CEO of their member society come and visit their institution. I like to meet with my president whenever
Okay.
I start. The new president starts, I'd like to go to um, their their institution or
Yeah.
whatever. And so I recently visited our president's lab, and it was amazing. So I think for CEOs to get out is one way. I think for associations, we haven't gotten that figured out. We have an online community. Um, it could be more active than it is, but it
Mm.
won't be more active than it is unless we dedicate more resources to it. So I don't think associations has figured that out yet. I think striving to create a more engaged online community, looking to offer online learning that is engaging, so that it's not just at the meeting, but year round.
Yeah.
I think those are the sorts of things we need to do because, you know, at every association I've been, we're like, we should have regional meetings, but the
Yeah.
truth is that's an expensive
Exactly.
proposition. And, I'd love to be able to hold small regional meetings, but
That's
we don't
right.
have the capacity yet to do something like that. So, I think those are a few of the ideas that none of them are particularly original. I think there are folks probably out there doing some very original things, and maybe Manny, you can help us find them and hear from them. But I think it is just getting out there.
Yeah. I actually have a few people I'd love to make an introduction with you.
Great.
And basically the thought process they shared with me, Wendy, was, you know, member engagement is something you cannot control because how can you control how someone else reacts to something,
Right.
right?
True.
What you can control is the experience. You
Hmm.
can't control how the experience, you deliver your experience. For example, I can control what I say. I cannot control how others react to that. So
Right.
I can be mindful, I could be inclusive, and I can create an environment where people feel heard, and automatically I'll have better friendships, better
Right.
relationships.
Right.
My clients will be happy, right? So what we realized is if a moment in time, for example, a conference is creating that activity, what's lagging is continuity. A
Yeah.
lot of organizations are good at creating activity, for example, webinars or conferences or,
Yeah. It's one
uh,
and
you
done.
know, exactly, case
Yeah.
studies before
Yeah.
renewals, amazing campaigns. However, like you said, you cannot create a whole bunch of conferences. You have limited budgets, you have capacity issues. So how can you create digital continuity
Yeah.
where if a member logs into the portal, they're not just seeing their dashboard, they can access learning, and below that learning module, they can have a discussion forum. So it's all connected. It's a
Right.
connected, integrated experience for the members. So that's what I have learned so far, which has, consistently worked for a few organizations that we work with as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Um, so that's just one part. And a
Yeah.
lot of times I wonder, Wendy, if there's this unseen trap for associations where we solve for more activity, more touch points, but the real problem, underlying problem is how do we enhance that experience in a way that feels personalized?
Yeah.
Because I read about the street lamp theory or street lamp effect,
Mm.
where this man keeps looking for his keys under the street lamp, whereas he lost it in the park somewhere in the
Yeah.
dark,
Right.
right? So we kind of look for the problem where it's visible, whereas the underneath problem could be something
Yeah.
else. Could you give me an example? Like how does that look
Yeah.
like in your
I have a
day-to-day
I have a
life?
great example.
Yeah,
My last organization, we were really looking to expand our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Uh, we brought in staff for that. And one of the things we did was bring in an outside consultant to help us with some focus groups with our
yeah.
members and different groups. So after listening to our members, we learned that our Muslim members were not feeling a sense of
Mm.
belonging. And surprise, our spring meeting was often booked over Ramadan. And so,
Oh,
yeah. Um, and so we needed to think about that. And what we started to do was we did put in a prayer room appropriately situated. We made sure there were halal food options. We were a little concerned they would get eaten by everybody, but for the evening. So we did those things. But as you know, associations contract many years out. So
yeah.
we also began when we contracted to include those dates in as potential blackout dates. And the most important thing I think we did though was we were in conversation with the community, with people who were from the community while we were making these changes, because we wanted to be sure we were understanding, the
Mm.
needs. And we learned that it's not necessary. We could schedule meetings over Ramadan. It was nice we were thinking about it, but if we did, there might be ways to do it. But again, I think it was really important that we paused and we understood that, oh, gee, maybe this is why there's not
Yeah,
a sense of belonging. And so I think people want to be seen, and you want to bring people out of the dark parking lot where the keys were into
yeah,
the street light, right? So, but you have to do that with intention. You have to take time to hear from your
yeah,
members. You have to take time to then listen to hard truths and then decide what you need to do in a way that is informed with
yeah,
voices that identify with that. And for me, one of the things I'm really excited about is as a research committee chair, we just launched some neuro inclusion research. And so again, we talked about this a little earlier in our conversation. I think we can all do better at thinking about how to include folks who may identify as neurodiverse or simply be more introverted in terms of creating agendas in advance, allowing people some time to sit with questions. I'm a very off the cuff person. I'm very comfortable with that. Not everyone is.
yeah,
Um, Finding different ways for people to participate in meetings, sometimes turning off cameras and
mm,
letting a question sit before everyone talks. Um, I like to call on people I'm not hearing from. I think on one hand, that helps get their voice in the room. On the other hand, it might make some people uncomfortable. So
yeah,
understanding, getting permission maybe outside of the room to say, hey, I'd like to hear more from you. I might call
yeah,
on you. Are you okay with that? And they may say no, then you have to respect it. Um, but again, I think bringing intention to thinking about how to bring other voices into the room, I think is something that we're working on. And that's as simple as, it may be as simple as you're working on trying to think of a good example, a tech solution.
yeah,
Um, and it's going to affect the person who does marketing and the person who does governance.
mm,
But as the tech people, we haven't talked to them, right? So we need to go out and talk to them. So asking the question, who else will be affected by this? Who do I
that's
need
right.
to be talking to and getting their input on? And again, I think it's just so easy when we execute, when we're remote, to put our head down, get the work done, and not ask those questions and not do that outreach. And you'll usually have a better outcome if you have more voices, kind of informing that decision and that work. So I
That's right.
rambled a little. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I actually appreciate that response, Wendy, because I can see that, and this is what I love about the associate folk as well. They're committed to getting things done,
Yes.
right? So if they have to, like, they can hold their ear like this, or you tell them the process is to hold it like this, they will do it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
they're just so committed to getting things done, serving the community. So getting them to share what discomfort that they go through day to day, share how they would like the process to be. That takes energy, and I really appreciate that you're really focused on changing that in your organization. And I'm pretty sure for listeners who are listening in today, a lot of them would take example, and I'm sure their intention is right. They're also trying to do these things, but I love that you're sharing some examples which people can resonate with and start taking nuggets and apply it in their works and lives. I really appreciate all that. I guess what I'd like to dive deeper into is as a CEO,
Mhm,
what, and this is a really broad question.
mhm.
When you look at the horizon for AES as a community, what is the biggest opportunity that you see for the community, for your staff? And right now, you're relatively new. You're not new. You're not too old, but that brings fresh set of eyes. You have had the time to listen in. What scares you and what excites you in that opportunity?
Oh, goodness. That's such a great question. Let me start by saying one of the things I love about AES is I came into an organization that was high functioning, very successful, grown very fast over 10 years.
Oh,
And so that's just a great environment to come into. And
mhm.
I think what we are working on right now is trying to scale, right? To
Yeah,
scale for the future. And I think what I get really excited about is thinking about what does that look like? What does that mean? And one of the things I've been talking with the board and the staff about is that we are claiming our space. So,
yeah,
we are a large, now a large medical subspecialty society. We spent a lot of time as we were growing thinking about, oh, they did that, so we
yeah,
won't, or they did that, so we won't. And actually, we can do that. So, for example, we're building an advocacy function as a 501c3. And again, there's a lot for us that we can do within the tax codes. And, we can do that in partnership with other orgs and amplifying the work and having greater impact. It isn't that we would be operating in someone else's space, we'd be complementing. So again, we're looking to claim our space and to scale so that we can look and be future ready and future
mhm.
focused. So really excited about that. And I think, I feel like I'm a steward or a
Yeah,
custodian. This is an organization that has a rich history, that's doing great work. And I want to be sure that I'm helping build on uh, what they've accomplished and where we are, and ensuring that we can continue that good work into the future. Um, so I take that very seriously. Um, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So, thanks for sharing that, and that's such a great thing to do, like taking space where you can. And I see the opportunity for the community, for the society as well. But if you were to think about some scary parts, some
very,
parts that come in the way, or be mindful of,
yeah.
what would those be?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I think that the external environment right now is very, very unpredictable. I think one of the things I was thinking about the first question you had, one of the things that CEOs do that is that may not be seen is we serve as a buffer,
Yeah.
right? And so I think one of the things that scares me right now is really the unpredictability of
Uh-huh.
so many things, whether it's the funding environment for research or the fiscal environment, the tax status for nonprofits. There are just so many external headwinds, disruptions, turbulence. I don't know what word you want to use.
Yeah.
So um, those things are scary. And I think as a CEO, helping calm the staff or the board, helping um, guide the leaders. I mean, both of my presidents that I've served within the first couple of weeks of their presidency, we had some big disruptions and we had to figure out what was our role with
Yeah.
that. Are we making a statement? Things like that. I think that scares me because I don't see that going away.
Mm.
I'm not sure this is just I think change is happening fast. So, how we deal with the external environment. And then the other thing I would say is I was on a retreat recently with association leaders, the model of associations and relevancy. I think there are things that are going to force associations to change what it looks like because some of what we do will be very available without
Mm.
an
Yeah.
association needing to do it. I do believe we will figure it out. You talked about associations. I'd like to open some of my presentations on associations with referencing the guilds and
Yeah.
the human towers that get built, with
Yeah.
guilds and such. So we have a long history. De Tocqueville talks about associations when America
Yeah.
was founded. So I think we'll figure it out, but it may not be what we know and are used to doing. We may have to be very open to some ideas, like maybe benefits and what membership is defined as changes. Um,
Yeah.
so I think there are some fundamentals about associations that we're going to need to question and evolve if we're going to remain relevant. And that's really scary because um, because we want to make sure we figure it out, I think is the
That's
thing.
right.
And what's
Yeah,
scary is if we don't figure it out and we lose relevancy.
that's right. I completely get that. And that's a concern for a lot of associations out
Yeah,
there, especially who are in the voluntary membership space where, they're not regulators or licensures or
right,
certifying bodies,
right.
right? So I think as a community, we're working towards it and we will find it out, like you just said. Now, I want to transition to another segment for this podcast, and
Uh-oh.
it's a very small segment.
Okay.
Um, we talked about belongingness. We talked about creating a safe space for our staff members. We talked about creating experience that continue for our members, and they feel engaged. I think I feel a lot of times identifying the right problem and
Mm,
it solves half the problem.
yes.
So, for anyone out there, any
Mhm.
leaders out there, um, what is one experience or one experiment you would ask them to do or try this week so that they can identify those problems clearly? And let's take staff frustrations, for example.
Mhm.
What could be one experiment a leader should do this week to
Mm.
identify staff frustrations so that they can start working on it and they see the right signals to work on?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good question. Um, you asked me earlier what I did this week that was really exciting, and I previewed a book so I could endorse it, and so I'm thinking a lot about that content, but I can't, it's not public
Yeah.
yet. Um, and it has a lot of little tools like this. So I think one thing that a leader could do to try to connect with what might be frustrating staff, I think would be to actually um, hold an open like coffee chat,
Yeah.
um, open up Zoom or Teams for 30 minutes and have it be not about work,
Yeah.
actually. Um, have it be an opportunity to try to get to know your staff more.
Mm.
So we've done some where it was around what are you streaming?
Okay.
Or, but have it be an informal coffee chat, have it be a way to get to know the staff more, and
Yeah.
then listen for other things. Um, I think that I was doing a little research and prep for the podcast, and Forbes was talking about how what we look for in leaders now has evolved, right?
Yeah.
And high on the lists that you get is emotional intelligence. So
Mm.
I could tell you, call someone, have a skip level discussion and ask them what's bothering them. I mean,
Yeah.
could certainly do that. But I think creating a pathway for things to emerge kind of naturally might give you more information and certainly serve you better in the future for gathering more information. So I would say one thing to do would be to create a way to informally connect with staff that you don't normally see. That's what I
Yeah.
would say. And
That's
I
a
think it's
great
hard
point.
when we're in a hybrid environment. And it's hard when our calendars are really busy and
Yeah.
and you know what? Here's the thing. You have a staff of 33 people come. That's a success. You don't
Yeah.
have to get 28 people to come to have it be successful, right?
That's right.
It just feels hard because we're busy and can three people really take 30 minutes out of work to like talk about what they're streaming? Yes, they can. Totally can.
Yeah. And,
But
and I love that you gave an example because a lot of times people would wonder, what do I talk about
yeah,
in an informal conversation with my coworkers, right?
what are
And
you reading? What are you streaming?
exactly. I
We
really love that
did
example.
at our board meeting, our president asked a great question for the intros. He's like, what do you love about Chicago? And it was so
Wow.
interesting to hear the answers. They were very diverse. You learned a lot about people. So, and
Yeah.
I have a co-chair who for the research committee, and she just put together a list of icebreaker questions. I know people hate this, but so we just did an icebreaker because I asked her, if you could be a potato, what kind of potato would you be? It was very funny.
Yeah.
But it was fun and why. We had to explain why. So you learn a little bit about people, but you can be goofy. You can be serious,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. I guess, from this example, I'm appreciating my work and my company culture right now because our CEO creates that environment. And I
Uh,
think, on a lot of levels, we know each other very personally as well. And I can say that he must know a lot of other folks on our team as well. So like Ashish, if you listen to this, I appreciate you. So but thank you so much. This has been really helpful. And Wendy, I think for our listeners, the takeaway I take from this conversation is uh, just be more human,
mhm.
right? There's gonna be urgent times. There's gonna be so much that we need to do, and we will do. But I think at times we need to pause. We need to go back and think about belongingness. And it's not about delivering more. It's about listening more, understanding more, and people making people feel heard and understood. And the real change happens um, when people feel understood.
Yes.
Be it if you're implementing technology. I mean, we have implemented enough technology to know that change management and technology adoption only comes when people feel part of the whole process. So
Yes.
I think that's a takeaway I'd leave with people. But Wendy, before we end the conversation, is there any takeaway that you'd want people to go away with? Or maybe one rule
Yeah.
that you would want people to follow.
I mean, I think we talk a lot about authenticity and being authentic, and I'm not sure we all have the common understanding of what that means.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean you can show up at work and do anything and be anything you want, right? I think what authenticity means is being a little bit vulnerable,
Yeah.
um, sharing a little bit about yourself that you feel comfortable sharing, um, being comfortable being the leader that you are. I was thinking about this. I'm a small Asian woman, and I had been coached to be more assertive, more masculine, to actually use a lower voice. And I actually got glasses at one point that I thought looked more masculine. And, it wasn't who I was. And,
Mhm.
I had to, I think we spend a lot of time in our career. I don't know, maybe it's me, maybe it's women, I don't know, but trying to be the kind of leader we think we need to be,
Yeah.
right? Like looking at leaders and thinking, oh, I need to be like that person. They're really, but the truth is, you need to be the kind of leader you can be. And so,
Yeah.
I think kind of coming into understanding how you want to show up as a leader. And again, that doesn't mean doing anything you want to do. Um, so I think, I guess to answer your question, I would think bringing your authentic self to work is a scary thing. You need to be vulnerable. You need to set boundaries. You need to be appropriate. But I think that is how you make the human connection. That is how you find out about
Yeah.
what is bothering your team or what is on the mind of members. And you have to give a little bit of yourself, and it's hard. So I would just say I think that that's important, difficult, scary work. Um, and for some people, that means they have to establish boundaries. I mean,
Yeah.
some people are they are large, tall people with a big presence, and they need to come into a room and they actually need to pull back, right? I need to enter a room and I need to kind of put
Yeah.
myself out there a little bit more than I might be comfortable doing. So it isn't about just showing up as you. That's not what authenticity means. It means kind of figuring out how you want to lead, what is appropriately authentic, and being a little vulnerable. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It most definitely does. And when you're talking about someone advised you to embrace the masculinity, and you started thinking about the glasses and whatnot, I kind of flashed back to the first time I saw you on stage. It was last year when you got the award. And I was like, that's so not you. Like you have such an amazing personality, and I think that's what makes it more endearing. And it was lovely to watch you speak on the stage. So I think you're doing a great job at being authentic, Wendy, and we appreciate your insights, your stories, and the way you explain things. I feel in this conversation, there's so much tactical knowledge as well. Like we talked about strategic visions and everything, but at the same time, it's not just theory. there's a lot of practicality that people can take away from this.
Oh, good. Well,
Thank you.
you made this very easy, Manny. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Lovely.